Greetings all, and welcome to the first part of the 15th episode of the V.T.P, or the Veteran Trainer's Perspective. Today, we are going to be taking a look at something that has not been covered on previous videos by no fault of my own, but simply by the way in which new information only comes in a little bit at a time. Today, we are going to be taking a look at some of the regional variants of the Galar region and the special region-exclusive evolutions that can be found there, as well as analyzing a few of the new Gmax forms that have not been covered on this channel. In the work that I have completed thus far, there are now instances, thanks to Sword and Shield, where certain features have already been worked through, now have new variants, evolutions, and even Gigantamax forms that couldn't be covered before because, well, they didn't exist in the canon yet. Now that they do, however, it's important for me to take the time to clean house and get to work describing and analyzing these new additions to my work. This is the first of a two-part episode that will cover the very material I just noted, so buckle up and let's start looking at some of the new material that the Galar region has come to offer so far. First, let's take a look at the newly introduced Galarian Farfetch'd. These creatures resemble normal Farfetch'd strongly, with the only major difference being that they are a darker shade of brown and carry much larger leeks with them, held over their shoulders for support. The soil in the Galar region, as well as unique climatic conditions, have an effect on the leeks that native Farfetch'd usually wield, in that they are much larger and heavier than what these birds might normally be able to wield effectively. In blade terms, the change is the same difference as going from wielding a basic short sword to trying to wield a two-handed broadsword. In order to adjust to this, native Farfetch'd have changed form in order to develop stronger forms that can actually wield these enormous leeks with little trouble. In fact, these creatures are able to wield them both like swords and javelins, and are gifted in their capacity to make do with the overbearing mass of their weapon, even as it makes them vulnerable to the assaults of other bird Pokémon. This is because, on one hand, adapting to these massive plants has left these creatures unable to fly because of their mass, but in turn, their movesets have changed to reflect the more brutal moves they can execute, acquiring the Rock Smash, Brutal Swing, Detect, Defog, Brick Break, Slam, and Final Gambit moves in place of the Cut, Aerial Ace, Air Cutter, False Swipe Slash, Air Slash, and Agility moves. They have also changed from normal flying types to pure fighting types. Their possible abilities have changed, so they have Steadfast as their base ability and Scrappy as their hidden ability, and the base speed stat has been slightly decreased in favor of a slightly increased base attack stat. They certainly might be a different breed of bird for their form, but that only serves to make these creatures stand out noticeably from their contemporaries elsewhere. In the Galar region, Galarian Farfetch'd have a special evolution that is entirely unique to the region, Sirfetch'd. In this form, these creatures have their body feathers turned entirely white as their eyes turn an orange color. The physical form of these creatures remains mostly unchanged, but their leek does change form, becoming much larger, with a cut, sharpened end always held upwards, while the base containing the bulb portion of the plant splits and is held very much like the guard on a sword. In addition, they develop and wield a shield made from leaves fused together at a base that points upwards, the sides extending outwards in all directions to give it a more rounded shape. These rare birds are not only unique for the physical form, but also for the way in which Galarian Farfetch'd actually evolve into these birds. Galarian Farfetch'd follow the way of the warrior throughout their entire life, something that often leads them to challenge just about any wild Pokémon they see to a battle, and over time, the accumulation of many battles and all the experience that comes with them can enable them to truly master their combat skills over time, acquiring the strength needed to wield the largest and heaviest of leeks in battle. In a combat stance for trainers, this can boil down to these creatures evolving once they can inflict 3 critical hits in a single battle against an opponent. These birds are much stronger both offensively and defensively because of their change in weaponry, their leeks becoming massive, blade-like javelins, as well as them developing a shield made from leaves that allows them to better defend against attack, plus granting them access to an iron defense technique immediately after evolving, as well as a first impression attack with a little bit of artificial aid. The massive increase in physical power that comes with this change in evolution does not change their moveset all that much, but it is enough to allow these creatures to wield their signature Meteor Assault attack at high levels of experience, a move that is just as powerful as a Giga Impact attack and requires a cooldown afterwards, but matches their fighting type assignment and grants them the hardest hitting attack a fighting type of any caliber could ever wield in battle. This is all reflected in their stats as well, as these birds are strong physically, with base attack and defense stats that are above average for fully evolved fighting type Pokemon, but is still otherwise lacking in other areas, limiting them to physical brawls as a specialty. As with their pre-evolved form, Sirfetch'd use their battle equipment for both combat and food, though the latter option is something they will only resort to in emergency situations, as their massive leek is extremely hard to grow and requires much of the energy needed for them to evolve in the first place. These birds are masters at using the simple but otherwise potent gear to the fullest in battle, fighting much like trained knights would with a sword and shield. These birds will generally rely on their leaf shield for defense as they rush their opponents, carefully blocking and even parrying the blows of their target until they leave a window open within which Sirfetch'd can then counterattack them with their sharp leek. The skill with which they can do this is astonishing, even for an untrained specimen, and serves as a testament to their fighting prowess, able to further switch their fighting styles up on the fly to use their leeks as swords, javelins, axes, and a host of other weapon types, showing off their incredible versatility in battle. However, even with this said, they are not completely safe from the ravages of time, for when their leek of choice starts to finally wither and lose its sharpness, they will put down their blade and retire from battling, living out their twilight times in peace and solitude. Now, let's next take a look at the Galarian Zigzagoon family. Galarian Zigzagoon have an appearance that is almost identical to that of their normal counterparts from a physical standpoint. The main differences come in their color, as their bodies are patterned in black and white stripes with red eyes, and have black star-shaped markings surrounding their eyes, though they are also noted for having pink tongues that loll about out of their mouth on a constant basis as well. Their type is altered to be dark normal in this state, and the moveset is slightly different as they have access to the lick, snarl, scary face, counter, and taunt moves in place of the tail whip, covet, fling, flail, and belly drum moves. Oddly enough, while most regional variants tend to be abnormal mutations of a particular species, in the case of Galarian Zigzagoon, these creatures are actually the original ancient model of their species and have only become different elsewhere as a result of other regions not having the same kind of harsh environment that the Galar wild is known for. This variant of Zigzagoon has had to develop the capacity to utilize anti-positive energy as a way of increasing the overall aggression levels so they actually have a chance to survive in the wild, and this is quite evident in their appearance and moves. These creatures constantly keep their tongues out as a deterrent to scare away minor predators, and while they move around wildly just like their non-Galarian counterparts, they do so to both confuse others and to surprise them, purposefully running into others and attacking them if they so much as enter into their line of sight. These creatures love nothing more than running around restlessly and wreaking havoc on their surroundings, and their aggressive tendencies can certainly make them a handful to deal with, so caution is recommended before trying to train them, if only to curb their aggressive personalities outside of battle. Galarian Linoon have the same general body form as their normal counterparts, and the same color scheme and patterns as their pre-evolved form, as well as the same changes in observed moves, though they additionally gain access to the Night Slash attack instead of just Slash immediately after evolving. Much like their pre-evolved form, Galarian Linoon are much more aggressive than their non-Galarian counterparts, and will actively attack anything that they deem to be even a mild threat, using their long tongues to taunt and intimidate others before lunging at them suddenly and viciously with their bodies, tackling their enraged target forcefully. These creatures care little for their own personal safety, and will gladly strike out at opponents of all kinds, even if they are stronger than what they are equipped to handle. This can make them a bit harder to control compared to their counterparts, but in the end, and overall, makes them much more of a threat and worth eliminating quickly, if only to curb their erratic and aggressive behavior. In the Galar region, Galarian Linoon have a special evolution that is entirely unique to the region: Obstagoon. In this form, these creatures completely abandon their quadrupedal lifestyle and instead become completely bipedal in form, as their bodies acquire new jagged black and white markings and patterns along their neck, and white four-pointed cross markings on the shoulders, their forearms, forelegs, and shoulder areas becoming swathed in grey, thick clumps of hair. They now possess 3 claws on their feet and 4 on their hands, while they retain the eye, facial, and tongue marks and forms seen in their pre-evolved forms, though the new stance also allows them to keep their arms perpetually crossed over each other in front of them to brace against and block attacks that come their way. Although normal Linoon cannot evolve under any circumstances, their Galarian counterparts can when they reach a notable level of experience while at night, as a consequence of their survival instinct becoming honed in response to the harshness of the Galarian ecosystem. When these creatures evolve into Obstagoon, they become far more aggressive in personality than ever before, and a number of fundamental aspects about them change. For one thing, this increase in aggression alters their abilities, as they lose access to Pickup and Gluttony as base abilities and Quick Feet as a hidden ability, instead acquiring Reckless and Guts as base abilities and Defiant as a hidden ability. Secondly, because the new biological form allows them to stand on their hind legs and move around on them freely, their arms and hands have been freed up entirely, allowing them to make actual use of their arms in battle to deliver attacks like Submission and Cross Chop, though this change in mobility status also slightly decreases their base speed stat. This in turn allows these creatures to handle many of the other Dark-type Pokemon they share territory with, and helps to diversify their move pool both naturally and artificially through items like TMs and TRs, and as a whole makes them a much more diverse threat. As far as their stats go, these creatures are well-rounded and act as useful combatants in many senses, as while they might be lacking in the way of special offense, they can still take quite a bit and deliver decent ones back in turn, with their base attack stat being above average for a fully evolved normal-type Pokemon, and their base HP, defense, special defense, and speed stats being above average for a fully evolved Pokemon of both of their types, rendering them a notable threat in almost any situation not involving fighting-type offenses. Despite their strong offensive skills, Obstagoon prefer to rely on their defenses for the most part, using their rugged bodies to take the brunt of attacks from others and only striking back when they have a clean opportunity to do so. This feeds directly into their signature technique, the Obstruct technique, which they learn immediately after evolution, in which they cross their arms over their chest and scream at the opposition loudly as they defend their forms against attack. This shouting comes off as extremely loud and obnoxious and works to not only potentially make the opposition flinch and harshly lower their defense stat if they strike with a move that makes direct contact, but in combination with their crossed arms, serves to make them impervious to attack in almost all instances, allowing them to shrug off damage with ease and make the attacks of others look weak by comparison. Obstagoon, as might be expected from a move like this, are generally very hard to train from the wild, and tend to be very disobedient if they are not trained properly, and in turn are among the hardest of Pokemon to work with outside of raising them from a prior stage of evolution. The only thing that can be said positively regarding them is that they will never back down from a fight and will always be willing to make the most of any battle by abusing and smashing anything that dares to get in their way, a tenacious attitude that can get them far in and out of battle when forced into conflict or, more often than not, when they choose to pick a fight. And now, let's take a look at Galarian Stunfisk. These variants have the same basic body form as their normal counterparts, but are differentiated by their dark grey skin tone, flattened paddle-like fins, white and red markings on their mouth that make it look like a Pokeball, green footprint pattern on their upper side, and a pair of sharp, metallic dark grey fin forms attached to the front and back of their body. Galarian Stunfisk are notably different from their more traditional counterpart in that they developed in an environment lacking the bacteria that originally gave their non-Galarian counterparts their electrical powers. Instead, they have developed in mud that has a high iron content, and in turn have developed a metal coating on their bodies that has rendered them partial steel types, as seen in the metal coating on their unusually shaped fins, losing their electrical properties altogether. In addition, their base attack and special attack and defense and special defense stats are swapped, and they have access to the Metal Claw, Metal Sound, Iron Defense, and Signature Snap Trap moves in place of the Thunder Shock, Charge, Electric Terrain, and Discharge moves learned by their normal counterparts. These creatures still act very much the same as their normal counterparts though, disguising their forms so as to appear as nothing more than a set of footprints next to an empty capture device. Using their colored mouths as a lure, these creatures wait patiently until something gets on top of them. Once in range, these creatures will forcibly bite down with their jagged, razor-sharp metal fins like a bear trap, clamping on until the prey either gives up and dies of blood loss or otherwise leaves part of themselves behind, giving these nasty fish the meal they were looking for. This unique form not only grants these creatures an exclusive ability in the Mimicry ability, which changes their type in accordance with the type of terrain present, but also gives them access to a signature attack, the Snap Trap attack, which is a strong and unique binding move that grants these fish some versatility and a nasty trapping attack that can ensure that anything foolish enough to get too close to them will feel the full effects of their flesh-rending steel forms. Sadly, as much of a pain as they can be, these creatures are still lacking in the stat department, as while the base special defense stat is above average for a fully evolved ground-type Pokemon, and the base HP stat is above average for a fully evolved Pokemon of both of their types, they are lacking in every other department. Still, they can prove to be notable menaces if provoked, and definitely an annoyance that won't go away so easily without the right offenses needed to stop them. To finish up this first update, let's end with a look at some of the new Gigantamax forms that have been introduced. First up is Gmax Butterfree. In that Gigantamax form, the wings of these creatures become much larger in size and take on a blindingly bright green glow, created as Dynamax energy crystallizes on their toxic scales and in puffy nodules at the base of their wings. While this might only be a temporary state for them, the immense power that flows through them while in this state allows these creatures to generate immensely powerful tornadoes with their wings that could send 10-ton trucks flying, often using this power to trap opponents before dousing them in their poisonous scales to finish them off. They use this power to great effect in battle through their unique Gmax move, known as Gmax Befuddle, which operates almost identically to their normal Max Flutterby attack, but adds in their now immensely toxic scales to guarantee that it will inflict a nasty status condition on the target in addition to dealing damage, allowing these monsters to use their Dynamax power to the fullest and leave little but physically weakened and sick Pokémon in their wake once their transformation ends. Second, there's Gmax Pikachu. In the Gigantamax form, these creatures grow immensely in size and become much bulkier, their tails in particular becoming much larger in size. While in this form, Pikachu do not change all that much aside from their altered appearance, though the electricity coursing through their form means that anything that gets struck by the tail will be hit with the electrical equivalent of a lightning bolt from touch alone. While this might only be a temporary state for them, the immense power that flows through them while in this state allows Pikachu to utilize a unique Gmax move known as Gmax Volt Crash, which takes the standard Max Lightning attack and amplifies it by blasting the opposition with a series of massive lightning bolts, allowing these monsters as a whole to use their Dynamax power to the fullest to paralyze anything that would dare to face them in combat. Third and lastly for now, there is Gmax Machamp. In their Gigantamax form, these creatures grow immensely in size and become bulkier, their head crest becoming more pronounced as their fists become brightly colored from excess Dynamax energy leaking from them in excessive volumes. In this state, Machamp do not change a great deal aside from their altered appearance, but their strength and offensive power becomes nearly unmatched, with their punches hitting with the force of a bomb blast, and they as a whole becoming strong enough to, as seen in one case, lift large ships and transport them across oceans to the shoreline. While this might only be a temporary state for them, the immense power that flows through them while in the state allows Machamp to utilize a unique Gmax move known as Gmax Key Strike, which takes the standard Max Knuckle attack and amplifies it by generating a feedback loop of energy that grants the user a clearer state of mind and greater focus, allowing these monsters as a whole to use their Dynamax power to the fullest to increase the likelihood of inflicting critical hits against those that would dare to face them in combat. There is plenty more to discuss about what has been introduced so far with Generation 8, so stay tuned for the second part of this episode as we dive back in to examine some other updates to the work already created here and beyond the V.T.P. Thank you all for watching this video. It is always an honor to be able to speak with you all on the subject of Pokemon in a way that brings me great joy and happiness in my work. If you would like to keep tabs on past and future work, click that subscribe button, check out my work on DeviantArt, and don't be shy about following me on Twitter, where you can find pertinent announcements on upcoming work before it is officially posted. Links to both can be found in the video description. If you would like to support my work and help Miguel and I continue to produce more content for you and improve upon our presentation, please visit us at my Patreon page, which you can also find a link to in the video description.
Yep, no.
With that, I thank you for watching and I wish you well.